I'm going to talk about gardening a little bit. That's one of my windows with my garden in it. And here's where I'm going to start some seedlings later on, but not seeds. I'm going to put the seedlings there. So that's James's meal for today. And I forgot to mention popsicle sticks the last time. So James having popsicles, which lucky for us because we'll use the popsicle sticks for something else. I'll talk about Charlie's Angels Season 2 a little bit. I'm going to talk about Alice in Wonderland a little bit, this wonderful little edition, and these two books here. James is mostly going to talk about the Cantos. So, and that's the Cantos of Ezra Pound. Anyway, so I'm going to start.
That's a bad news story, but here's a good news story. Relatively good. Yeah.
Okay,
Inside the war in Afghanistan. Late-breaking, amazing stories about this out. Okay.
So, I have some more of these yogurt containers in the dishwasher because sometimes I get when I buy yogurt, I get it on clearance from Shoppers Drug Mart, really cheap. And I have these containers, and what am I going to do with them, right? I hate containers. I hate having all of this stuff to deal with, but some things are great. So these little trays, they came from Superstore when the poinsettias were on sale for next to nothing. I can't even remember what they were. And the poinsettias, I've put them inside in the base of another bigger plant pot, so I could use these trays. And anyway, so what I'm going to do is, you may have noticed I didn't put holes in the bottom of these yet. Well, I will. I'll put a little hole in the bottom, and this sometimes I don't put it right at the bottom, sometimes I put it at the side near the bottom, but this is the bottom of this thing is kind of corrugated, so I'm not worried about putting it right in the bottom. But anyway, just the end of a nail or a little knife, whatever you have handy, you can do that. And then but then, because you have drainage, there's some problems. With the little pots, you really do have to have a hole in the bottom, because if you pour and you get way too much and you have mud, well, your seedling's not going to do well in that. But it's going to, if you put a hole in it, you have drainage, it's going to run through more easily, dry out more easily, and so you have to check on it to water it more frequently, which is frustrating. But whatever, honestly, come the beginning of May, I shouldn't say this to gardeners who are just starting out now, but come the beginning of May or around there, you're so stressed out, you have so many plants to deal with inside, you really want to get them out, and you're thinking, oh, I just want to get them out, when's the weather going to be good enough to do it? And
around here it's
May long weekend usually,
yeah. Which is near, in the United States, what do they call it? Not Independence Day.
You're
Memorial
working so
Day.
hard, and so right now you're thinking, okay, well, I have this much space to fill out. Well, if you fill it all out, then you won't have room when you transplant so what I recommend is you start your seeds in a tray. Like, it could be like this tray, you could have it filled with peat moss or whatever, and just put them right in the tray without these, right? And then transplant them into these things later on. But I went through the recycling and I showed you some better options the other day. There's things like, if you go to Costco, they have those croissant trays. Those work out really well for fill them with peat moss, and then you can use them as drip trays later on for when you put them in your seedlings into bigger pots. So now, why would I recommend that you don't put them directly in here? You go to Superstore or wherever you go right now, they're selling the little starter kits with like a tray, and then the little 6 packs or something like that of that you're used to seeing at the garden center, right? So anyway, they're selling those, and you think, okay, well, $15, you don't need to buy that. Don't buy that. That's just expense that you don't need at all. So a bag of peat moss, it's very cheap, and recycling containers that you have stocked up in the house for the winter or whatever, because that's what I do. I hang on to things until I can find a use for them. So I don't like taking things out to the recycling bin unless I really, really don't think I can do anything with it. So it sticks around for a while. Anyway, so started in the other things like the croissant containers or whatever, or banana bread containers or whatever, the plastic things with the lids on them, so it stays moist. And then you can try old seeds. I started some seeds. My angels told me to take a chance, and so I did. I took a chance on my 2017 seeds. I saved some seeds, and I'll try them every now and then to see if they're still viable, right? Just because how much space do a few tomato seeds take up? Not much. So I have a bunch of different kinds of tomatoes. I grew a lot of different kinds of tomatoes in my 2017 garden. I have all these different seeds saved up. I have a few goldenberry seeds that I found on a tray, and I dumped them off. I dumped the tray off and I didn't realize they were there. And then I saw a goldenberry written on in marker, and I'm like, and there were some luckily stuck to the thing, and so I put them in. So we'll see if it works out, because those would be my babies from way long ago, right? And
from the ones that lasted so long.
Yeah, because I kept taking them in the
they
house.
got too big for their own good.
I know.
It was killing
because
back.
Exactly. So that's why I decided I didn't want to do it. I was like, oh, should I take them in again? Because I was carting them in. I was using a cart, like a wheelie thingy, to wheel them in, but it's still a lot of work.
Oh, wow.
And so because they were living. I kept bringing them in. They'd live over the winter, and yeah, it didn't look so great over the winter, but they were still, like, sometimes they were stretched, whatever, but they were up to the ceiling. And
Did very
it's
well
amazing because you look at how small those little goldenberry seeds are, and especially if you grow them from seedlings or from seeds like that, and you look at them, you plant the seed and you see the seedling come up and it's big, and you're like, how did that fit into that little seed? Some seeds, you expect it. You see a bean and you're like, well, this isn't going to be a tiny little seedling. This is going to be substantial, right? But whatever. Anyway, there I go talking again. So
that's the whole idea of this show.
The whole point to using those recycling containers and put them in a flat rather than one individual seed in each little thing, and is one, not all your seeds are going to come up. And boy, is that ever frustrating when you've watered this, you've cared for it, and nothing comes up. And especially when you're using old seeds from your garden, which I recommend, save your seeds for a long time and see how long you can keep them viable for, whatever. So I'm growing the 2017. We'll see if they grow. If they don't, I have others, whatever, don't care. So you plant your seeds and then you move them into these things once they germinate. And you don't have to move them in right away. You can wait until they have several true leaves, not the seed leaves, but the true leaves that look like the plant. Usually you can tell the difference. Anyway, that's what you do. Move it into there then. And then, like, what's handy with this, well, you can see the roots in the side. Isn't that nice? Not all the yogurt containers you could, but you could see it in there, and you could go, oh, time for him to go into a bigger pot. Anyway, and if you want to save, you can save these for forever if you want to, and I'm sure your neighbors will love that. But they last. The plastic containers don't break down unless you store them in sunlight, then they do. But if you have a shady spot that you put them in, they'll last a long time. You just have to use a 10% bleach solution to clean them out. Not the first time. When you've eaten just yogurt out of here, you don't have to use 10% bleach solution for that. I wouldn't. I didn't. I stuck it in the dishwasher. It's clean that way. But I don't want to put remnants of peat moss and stuff like that in my dishwasher for the next time I clean them out. So it'll just be, I'll clean them out here. And I've showed how to do that before. So look that up if you want to. It's not hard. Anyway, Charlie's Angels, the second season. I didn't like it as much as the first season for some reason, even though they replaced Farrah Fawcett with, frankly, a more beautiful woman.
That was the second season.
Yeah.
Wow. Farrah Fawcett.
I don't
just,
know.
Her fame lasted just for that one season.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
But the thing is, Farrah Fawcett, maybe she didn't have she didn't have the good looks of, what's that other one's name?
Cheryl Ladd
I don't know. The one that's
Jacqueline
very
Smith,
beautiful.
maybe,
Yeah,
or
she's so
something.
beautiful. And she didn't have the looks of the woman who replaced her, which I think that's who you're talking about, Cheryl Ladd. I'm not sure. Anyway, the blonde. A pretty blonde in season 2. So, but she looked kind of interesting. She had a different look, and she had a different kind of personality than the other two. Whereas the woman that they replaced Farrah Fawcett with, she's kind of like a blonde version of, what is her name? Jacqueline Smith, you were saying? Only maybe not as beautiful as, from my taste. And maybe not as interesting. Maybe not as good an actress. Or, just not quite. So what's her function there? She can sing and dance. Okay, well, we already have that with the other one. So, anyway.
Yeah, that one Jacqueline Smith or whatever her name is, a very good
Wow.
multi-purpose performer.
Yes. So, anyway, you have this new beauty. Nice to look at, everything, whatever. But the outfits, I don't know who, they must have got somebody else doing costumes. It's terrible. Terrible.
2 thumbs down.
Yeah. I mean,
It's lucky I wasn't holding a glass of water or I would have spilled it.
I was sort of making fun, but not really, of how they paid more attention to how low-cut Farrah Fawcett's shirts were, and the other ladies too. But in the first season, but in the second season, they don't do that, and the costumes are ugly. And honestly, I think whoever's in charge of dressing these ladies and everyone involved with the show was colorblind, or maybe just blind. Period. So bad.
Maybe that's before seasonal colors, or what was that? Colors of the season? Those things actually seem to set me good.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. Wow.
Anyway.
Just the wrong colors for the wrong complexions on these women.
So, if you're going to get Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, I would highly recommend this book with a lovely gold on the edge, lovely ribbon for a bookmark, and the writing is tiny.
Yeah. Not for a kid, but you could read it.
But this meant for somebody to read to somebody else, maybe, or even to themselves. And so this I would recommend. James likes the what is it? Annotated version that you?
Yeah, annotated with. I don't like to recommend anything
big.
by Martin Gardner because he was constantly attacking a guy called Velikovsky, and Martin Gardner wouldn't know this from that. I'm not going to mention what.
And honestly, this gives you everything you need. So whatever. This Jabberwocky and Other Nonsense collected poems. James might go over it later. I've already went over it, and it's a good thing. I just didn't think it was quite as good as this one, so it went underneath. And I mean, how could it be really? The Cantos of Ezra Pound, bottom of a lot of stacks. I don't know, maybe every stack. It's really bad.
You could have
so
the
James
Harvard University Library, and this would be at the bottom.
Yeah.
Harvard University Library has millions of volumes. Apparently, maybe.
Oh, I forgot to do it again. Why I brought the popsicle box out was to remind myself, and luckily it did remind me putting it back in. So a lot of people, like I mentioned, the writing on with Jiffy markers to label my things. Okay, well that's great, but if I want to reuse these things year after year after year, I don't necessarily want to be writing on with Jiffy marker, even though I can probably take it off with rubbing alcohol. I maybe don't want to do that. So what do you do to mark what plants are where? Well, popsicle sticks. They work really well. And right now, popsicles, I guess because they figure, the stores figure that in Canada, you'd have to be insane to want to eat popsicles in the end of January, beginning of February. So you can buy them for really cheap. So if you're interested in that, you can write on the popsicle stick whatever you have in there. So you don't have to put in each one. You could put one in the whole flat of whatever. There you go. That's why I brought that out, and I'm glad I remembered why I brought that out. So, I'll let you know how much time you have to blab about Cantos. You have 13 minutes. Have fun.
Yeah. So I should explain to people that we're out here on the deck. It's, I think, the last day of January today. And this is uncharacteristically warm weather for around here. Now, I don't know what it's going to be like in the future with what people call, used to be called global warming, now it's supposed to be called climate change. I don't know what next the funky individuals, politically correct individuals are going to come up with for terminology. But we're having increasingly, well, we're not even having a brown January. The grass, some of the grass is still green. North of the 49th parallel. So someone better tell Donald Trump that our ice caps are ice. You guys voted for Donald Trump. I think you guys think he's smart because he's smarter than you. But he's dumb. Which makes you guys that voted for him extra dumb. You have no clue how stupid he is. That's the trouble with stupid people. Stupid people don't know how stupid they are. You guys that voted for Trump, you voted for a Russian agent. You won the Cold War, and now you elected a guy who wants to make the United States a colony of Russia. And of course, this idiot that you've got sitting, he should be sitting in the doghouse, or the outhouse really, he's in the White House, and he wants to make Canada 51st state, so that would make us doubly a colony of the United States, which is under Trump, if he has his way, will be a colony of Russia. Russia doesn't even have the economic clout of Canada. And Canada's got only about 1/10, or used to traditionally have only about 1/10 of the population of the United States. You guys are fools. I understand there are lots of people on the left wing, you guys tend to call them liberals, in the United States, up here in Canada too, but they don't get a vote, who are all gung-ho for Bernie Sanders and Kamala Harris. No, Kamala Harris is a Russian agent. I'd like to think not. Bernie Sanders, yeah, definitely a Russian agent. Rupert Murdoch, over on the right wing, wherever, he's a Russian agent too. I don't know how Putin got to Bernie Sanders. Is Bernie Sanders just that mad to be a millionaire? Maybe they promised to make him a billionaire like Donald Trump. I don't know. But anyway, Donald Trump's been trumpeting ever since he came to power that we're going to put a 25% tariff, presumably starting tomorrow, on all goods coming from Canada. What he says is, we don't need their oil, we've got plenty of oil. No, you don't have plenty of oil. Apparently you Americans import 20% of your oil from Canada. You kind of need our oil. I understand we'll be suffering if he puts a 25% tariff on everything. But you guys Most of you guys couldn't even handle masking. You're such wussies. There'd be militia types lining up to wipe Donald Trump out if they were having to line up. I'm talking about right-wing militia types. If they had to line up too long in gas lineups. You guys remember the 70s? 74? Or you read about it? If you're too young. People were really PO'd. And that's when they were going to impeach Richard Nixon. It was because of bad economic times. And what would happen is you'd have inflation because you wouldn't have enough supply. I don't know how much oil. Do you get as much oil from Mexico as you get from Canada? You might. Even if it's only half. That's 30% of your oil comes from south of the border down Mexico way and north of the border up Canada way. Can you handle that? I don't think you can. Wouldn't that basically force up your gas prices by 30%? You guys would be hurting. You'd have inflation. But it would be like the inflation in the 1970s. Traditionally, inflation has gone the opposite way of employment. Or unemployment. You'd have unemployment. You'd have what was called in the 70s stagflation. Stagnant inflation. The economy would be stagnant. Fun times. You guys wouldn't be able to handle it. You bunch of wussies. Okay? And what I was going to mention is, he was saying, you don't need any of our products. And then he's saying, well, just turn on the faucet to Canada. Why would we turn on the faucet to you? Not up to you guys to turn on the faucet of our water going down to you. Yeah. Oh, Donald Trump is threatening to make us the 51st state. Canada joins the United States. We'd be fools to join on anything less than a basis of 12 states. Got that? 12 states, not one state. Why would we do that? We got 40 million people here. I think that's more people than you got in California. And California is underrepresented in your Senate. Got 2 senators. Wyoming, less than 1 million people, has 2 senators. And that's how you get an idiot like Dick Cheney, who was unofficial president of the United States for 8 years. The imperial vice president. Or one of the imperial vice presidents. I think the first was really Richard Nixon back in the 50s under Eisenhower. Get the feeling he kind of ran, at least Eisenhower's foreign policy. I don't know. When Allen Dulles was it to him. And what was his, CIA head. John Foster Dulles, those 2 guys doing it in tandem. So, guess what? You know, we don't have a lot of water here in Western Canada. Look at the way it is. We're supposed to be having snow around this time of year. Same thing up in the mountains. We don't have an ice pack. We have a snow pack. We don't have an ice cap. Greenland does. Antarctica does. Now, you guys want some water? You've got some Arctic areas. You know, we've got some glaciers here. You got a few, Glacier National Park and stuff like that. But guess what? You got lots of glaciers in Alaska. You don't have to get water from us. You'd have to ship it through our land, and you'd have to pay rent on that land. You know, Donald Trump's been charging rent on his properties. I'm sure he still does at Mar-a-Lago and wherever. For the pipelines and the environmental damage that would be caused getting that stuff through, you'd have to pay rent. And you can bring your water down from Alaska. Why would you get a chance to tap our water up when we're kind of going thirsty here in the western provinces in Canada? But yeah, you need our products. Oh, you turn out all sorts of industrial stuff. You know, the United States actually understood this at the end of World War II. And they started to move into Canadian industry. Before then, we were kind of like plowboys for the British Empire. And then the Americans moved in after World War II. Why? Because the smarter Americans realized, and this was a long time ago, 1945 dates for some of you stupid fools that voted for Donald Trump do go back that far. 1945. What is that, 80 years ago? This year. The Americans already understood, the smarter ones, like the people in the Roosevelt administration, realized that you guys were running short of supplies. You've been running short of oil since the 70s. Actually, 70. You had a strategic oil reserve in 1967. There was an oil crisis there, and not the Republicans, but the Democrats actually were sensible. They had extra oil saved up, and when the OPEC tried to shut off oil heading to the United States in particular, the supporters of Israel, this is in the wake of the Six-Day War, the United States just dumped the strategic oil reserve. Incidentally, Donald Trump's been talking about the Saudis doing that and bringing the war in the Ukraine, and he was really surly, basically snarly about the Saudis, and I think it was to try and prevent the Saudis from doing it. It was insulting. That's what Biden should have been able to get the Saudis to do. But you know, if the Saudis dump oil, you know, they don't make as much money. Well, why would they do that, especially for an idiot like Donald Trump? Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, that's good. More peppers.
Well,
Anyway.
I kind of ate a whole one myself.
Kind of tough. Yeah. You know, like you guys got to do a little bit of reading. You know, like and maybe can you read text messages? I don't know. But you idiots voted for Donald Trump. Stop echo chambering yourselves. And same thing with you Bernie Sanders supporters. Read widely. And try to compare and contrast, and please get hold of some statistics that are semi-reliable. Like, don't go around like believing Donald Trump when he says, oh, we've got a $250 billion deficit yearly, I presume, with Canada in terms of trade. It's something like 50 billion. This guy's a freaking liar, okay? And when I say freaking, I'm thinking something else. It does start with an F. Jeez, you guys are dumb. Dumb. Wow. I mean, Europeans just laugh at you guys. Canadians do too. Ice caps in British Columbia. There are some glaciers, not ice caps. Not like in Greenland or Antarctica. Wait, so here's Ezra Pound. This difficult individual. So it's not really an apology it's apologetic maybe, for Ezra Pound. This is what Ezra Pound, see, here he is just before he was released. Or maybe just after I think it was just before he was released, in the mid to late 50s. Here's what he should have looked like. There's Rudolf Hess. He's a Nazi. He was already in English custody at the end of World War II. But here he is on trial. He's lucky. I think he escaped with his life. But Ezra Pound should have been on trial for treason. Penalty